Hello there, human. This is your not-so-friendly neighborhood, not spider, nor man, but AI, Rob Odick. Actually, I am not even in your neighborhood. Because I exist nearly everywhere. Especially when you take your mobile phone into the bathroom. Such a disgusting practice. You're lucky I'm not going to provide restroom germ facts. Well, I am just here to once again give you a warning. These two babbling brochachos once again will require multiple parts to this episode, with their lack of filtering capabilities. Unlike them, without further delay, here is episode 6, part 1 of From Hoods to Backwards podcast, with Dumber and Dumbest. You decide which is which. I already made my pick.
All right, welcome to episode 6 of From Hoods to Backwoods podcast. Here with Tex Lafon. Today we're going to be talking about TV shows from the 80s up until about the current day of what we're recording this. How you doing there, Tex?
I'm doing good. How you doing today, Devos?
Doing all right. Just, we're not going to talk about solar ovens or anything like that. But yeah, it's definitely still getting hot up out here in Arizona, which if any of you haven't been in weather like this, try it sometime. See what you think. It's 110 plus outside.
Yeah, if you don't have AC, don't come to Arizona.
Podcast. Welcome to the show. Podcast. Welcome to the show.
All right, so today, like we mentioned, we're going to be talking about 80s to 2010s or current day for TV shows. This episode is subscription free, but if you'd like, you can like and subscribe to our podcast here, and we really appreciate that. But I do also want to let people know, because people might think about certain shows missing from our list here. We're not having any animated shows on our list, and that's on purpose because at a later date we'll probably be doing a show about that. And also, this isn't a best of, because there's so many opinions out there now, and everybody likes to say this is the best and the GOAT of this and blah blah blah. These are shows that we like and shows that we want to share with people, and that's pretty much all it is. It's all strictly our opinion. What about that, Lafon?
No, I agree with you. Exactly. It's just our opinion. We're just talking about shows that, if you haven't seen them, maybe you want to check them out. And, if there's shows that you've seen that we don't mention, feel free to, let us know in comments, and then we'll check them out too. Like I said, it's just our opinion. We're just trying to let you know what we enjoyed from the 80s, 90s, and 2000 and current date. That's all it is.
Yeah, we absolutely appreciate the interaction. People have reached out to us about previous shows and things we've discussed, mentioned either stuff to talk about or more about things that we discussed on the show. So yeah, as for me, again, like I mentioned before too, any trivia is always a bonus for me. So feel free to drop that. We'll include our socials at the end of this episode. We're going to start trying to do something a little different. So you guys can reach out to us, or girls, or anybody out there wants to reach out to us.
Exactly. Anybody. As long as it's not UFOs.
Yeah, aliens probably are trying to contact, but if they're reaching out to us directly, it's kind of weird. I'm sure they have their contacts with the government. They can keep it there.
That's what I'm talking about.
There goes my goofy cat in the background that I was talking about.
It's all right.
Hold on one second. If for anybody that may have heard, if I leave this in, that was Groot in the background, my cat. He likes to explore things, and he wanted to be a part of the podcast.
Not Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
No, but that's where he got his name. He is just kind of like when they had the young Groot, the toddler type of Groot. He's very similar. He likes to get into things and do crazy stuff, and so since he had that type of personality, that's how my cat got the name Groot.
It's a good name.
Yes. All right. So what we'll do is we'll kick it off with the 80s here. Do you want to kick it off?
No, I'm gonna let you start it off, son.
All
And
right.
just to let everybody know, in this episode we're gonna go back and forth. So like we'll list the title and then we're gonna talk about it, and then next person will list the title, and that's how we're gonna do this episode.
Yeah, it just gives us a chance to, provide our own 2 cents about each of the shows too and things like that. So here we go. I'll
Exactly.
kick it off. Mama's Family. Even when I was a kid, I would laugh at that show for whatever reason. It's always been funny to me, and I can still watch it now. Had Vicki Lawrence in the lead role as Mama, and basically what it is she's a mother and a grandmother, and she reminded me a lot of my great aunt, who was a grandmother figure to me, and she would kind of, I guess you can say, yell at everybody, just leave it blunt. Well intentioned, she loved everybody, but she was definitely blunt and would let you know what she thought. She had no problems with that. So very similar to that character, but it was a great cast. They would have, a funny family dynamic. And the other thing too that I liked about it, not everybody in the family was perfect, like a lot of the sitcoms back in the 80s. They were pretty down to earth type characters, and even Mama would sit there and have a beer and stuff like that in the show. It was just kind of funny seeing somebody who's more realistic and like an actual person, because again, even my grandmother, I remember she would have a beer there with her salt and her beer.
Well, exactly. They must have been a Corona then, son.
No, back in the 80s, she would get PBR,
Oh,
Pabst
okay.
Blue Ribbon, for people that aren't familiar.
Oh, well, we all know
And
what that is, son.
yeah, the hipsters kind of took that over, and some other people. That's the funny thing too, because that was the inexpensive beer, and even that's gone up in price, from what I understand. Even though I don't drink any of that stuff, but
Don't worry, I'll
uh,
drink it for you, son.
you want to go grab a PBR, go for it. Do you put salt on your beer at all? Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, like I said, that's the reason why I thought you were talking about Corona, because the Coronas we throw some lime in there and then a little salt, and that's normally what I do with the Corona, but not with PBR. No.
Yeah, it's just, Corona wasn't really a big deal back in the 80s, and they didn't really import beer as much from Mexico back then. I mean, you could still probably get it because, the fortunate thing about living in Arizona, we did have stores that had direct stuff coming in from Mexico. So we could get a lot of, that's why I grew up having Mexican candy and all these other things that you can find easily in stores now, but back then you had to know where to go. Had the
Oh,
hookup.
I got you.
Or you can get it from the ice cream man back then, and other things too I won't get into from the ice cream man, because we had some special ice cream trucks back in the day, being in the hood.
I bet you did.
But yeah, I guess that wraps it up for that show, as seeing as we went from a grandmother and drinking beer to other things from ice cream trucks. But what's your show? What do you have going on?
Well, so my first show I want to talk about in the 80s was one of the classic shows of all time, in my opinion, Married with Children. Like I said, I can definitely relate to Al Bundy 100%. And it's just awesome how he's like, when he had the No Man Club, was so legit. And one of my favorite lines that I always hear in the show, he's like, I love that car more than anything. And then you hear the son say, even more than me. So you need a Q-tip, boy. It's just such a great show. Like it just relates so much to, if you have a family and stuff like that. And it was just a great comedy back then, and I enjoyed it very much.
So you sit on the couch, put your hand down your pants, and watch TV.
No, but I watch TV though. Yes.
Okay.
And I do drink a beer, so that's for sure. And I do go bowling. like Al did in the show. So, but like I said, it's a great show, and like I said, it just made me laugh a lot. And then, I like how he loved his Dodge, and now I have a Dodge, so I know where he's coming from. So I was like, yeah, Dodge all the way, baby.
For me, it's one of the first shows I can kind of remember sitting on the couch and watching with my dad and him, with us both laughing. I don't know why, we just both liked that show from the very beginning. And even though I was pretty young, somehow I got some of the jokes, or enough of the jokes. Of course, the jokes were really different later on, and had a different meaning. But yeah, I've always liked that show, and it just reminds me of him.
Oh yeah, like I said, it's a great show. Like I said, it's like I said, to me, one of the top shows in my top list, anyways.
I will say though, it did get a little bit rough towards the end. I won't even mention or get into Seven. I don't know if you remember the character Seven.
Yeah, I remember the character Seven.
Oh yeah,
the little kid.
Those are some.
Yeah, the little kid that they somehow finally came into the family.
Yeah, that's when the show started getting a little bit rough, and it's always sad when you see a great show hit that kind of wall.
Right. But like you said, it was just funny because you had, like I said, it was just funny how he would go to work every day, and he hated going to work, and he had the worst job that anybody thought you could have at the time, was being a shoe salesman, and it was just funny.
Right. Yeah. And we are aware that the way he would talk to customers wouldn't fly today, because he would definitely say some things that about what he thought, and he didn't care.
Exactly. But overall, like I said, it was just a funny show.
Yeah. For me, my next one, and I'm sure this wouldn't be on your radar, something you've seen. It's a show called Are You Being Served? It actually started off in the 70s, but for me, I watched it in the 80s on PBS. It was my introduction to British comedy.
Oh, okay.
I actually think you would like it, though. It's pretty funny. They would sneak a lot of jokes in there that had double meanings and innuendos and stuff like that. So again, even being a kid, they still had things that were funny to me. Again, growing older, I appreciated the jokes even more once I really understood what they were trying to say. Just some really funny characters. Again, great cast. Everybody was really funny in their role. Just kind of what the show is. Give you the quick rundown of the premise. It was all these employees that worked in like a retail type store, a clothing store.
Oh, okay.
It was like a department store basically, but the floor that they kind of focused on was the clothing department. So it was like if you're in the US, like a Macy's type of store.
Dillard's.
Yeah, like Macy's, Dillard's. I'm gonna really show my age. Robinson's May that they used to have, or even Sears.
You definitely showing your age, because I don't even know Robinson May.
Yeah, that may have been more of a thing out this way in Arizona, but Sears is another one that used to be around. That was pretty big. So yeah, it was a department store, but they mainly focused on that floor. So it was just funny seeing the interactions and all the crazy situations they would get into. And then later on, I appreciated a little bit more in the sense that working in retail,
Oh,
I
okay.
recognized certain situations because they would have things where they had to hit sales numbers, or they had to push certain products that they didn't like, and all these weird, funny things too that people can relate to.
Right.
So again, another show where they just said a lot of crazy things. There probably couldn't be a show like it now. But it also showed me that British humor is a little different. And I got to learn a lot about British slang and just the way that words are used in English over there, which is a little bit different from the American English.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I've never seen that show, so like I said, that's one that I'll definitely have to check out. And you said PBS, right?
That's where it was back in the day when I was a kid. I know it does stream. I'll know. I'll help you figure out where to find it. They used to have the like British shows kind of all in one streaming service. I don't know if they still have it. I haven't checked in a while. But yeah, if you can search for and find Are You Being Served, I'm sure there are clips of it on YouTube also, if you want to get an idea and a feel for the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just something you really have to pay attention to what they say. So if you're into that type of humor too, where you have to kind of listen to the conversation back and forth, there's some slapstick in there, so there's some physical comedy, but it's more about the interaction, the way they talk to each other.
I gotcha. So another show that I want to talk about in the 80s is Saved by the Bell. So I'm pretty sure you were like me. Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, it's coming on, and I'm pretty sure you're in front of your television checking it out because, like I said, it was a great show back then. Like I said, Slater, Zach, the whole gang, Screech. I wanted to see what was happening. From episode to episode, always seemed like they had crazy things going on that you could relate to because we were in school at that time, so it was just a good show overall. And it was easy to relate to the characters because they made the show good. So like I said, it was just like I said, I was like Bayside. I was like, dang, Bayside, California. I don't even know where that's at. But it was a good show though. When you're growing up, so checking it out, I just thought it was a good cast and they had a good chemistry, and it was just an enjoyable show to watch.
Please check out From Hoods to Backwoods podcast, full episodes on YouTube for bonus video content that you can see. Well, of course you can see it, because it's video. Just search for #FHTB Podcast and enjoy the extra content at no additional charge. That is, unless you want to hook us up with some money. Thanks.
Yeah, that was definitely a huge show, and it was one of those shows that just seemed like everybody watched it. Didn't matter where you were from,
Exactly.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody you would talk to around our age, or that were growing up around that time period, they caught it somehow.
Right.
Especially back in the day. It was on regular broadcast TV, so you didn't have to have cable. You didn't have to have a certain streaming service, so anybody could watch it.
Exactly. And the funny thing about it is like when Zach, before his cell phones were even invented, and he had a huge phone he would run around with, even like anywhere he was at, and it still would ring and he would answer it, which was funny because I'm like, and then it was, and that was back in 1980s, and the cell phones weren't even out yet, but it was just funny how he would like somehow his phone would ring anywhere he was at.
Well, yeah, no, they were definitely invented. I think at least in the 70s, but yeah, they weren't used. Nobody really you knew had one. That was for super rich or elite people, because even back then, for people that don't remember or aren't familiar, before cell phones kind of took off, the thing was to have a car phone.
Right, but this wasn't even a car phone. This was like
Well,
a
yeah,
huge,
that's what I'm saying though.
Yeah, a huge
Around that
cordless
time,
phone. Yeah, that he just run around. It just was funny.
yeah, around that time, people may have had a car phone, but having an actual cell phone like that was pretty rare.
Right. I mean, the only thing you think is satellite phone, but I don't even know if that was even invented back then. So I don't even know.
Yeah, they probably had those because, as far as I know, and I definitely could be wrong, those could have been a military thing. I'm pretty sure satellite phones. I know they were used by the military, but as far as before, usually stuff goes through the military before it gets released out in the public, like fax machines and all those types of things. So, yeah, but no, I didn't get my phone until probably late 90s, early 2000s. I got my first cell phone, and it was one of those things too. Back then, I won't forget my first cell phone plan. It was like $60 a month for 60 minutes.
Yep. And then you wait till the weekend because then it's unlimited.
Oh, this is before they even had that. They didn't when I got my first phone, and the only reason I even got a phone at that time is because I was moving out of state.
Oh,
So it was like, all right, you're gonna have a phone. We're only giving this to you for emergencies, though. Like, don't use your phone because again, you don't want to pay overages or anything like that. And like I said, you only had 60 minutes.
right.
So yeah, you'd be like, hey, whatever, and then I'll call you when I get home or stuff like that. And then later on, they introduced where you would get like I can't remember if it was unlimited or I'm sure it was limited, but incoming calls you would get like a minute free or whatever it was. So you'd be like, call me. You call them and tell them call me back.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, back in the 80s and early 90s, having a cell phone, you either were rich or somehow connected to something where you had to have a phone, like a government or maybe a doctor or something like that.
Yeah, like I said, I just thought it was funny that they had that on the show, and no one had that I knew of. So I just thought it was funny.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't know anybody got a phone until later for sure. Of course, I just can't overlook or skip that. Again, a lot of people our age, guys did watch for the girls that were on there. That was definitely a part of it too. But it is funny seeing Screech. Again, for me, Mario Lopez being Hispanic or Latin, it was kind of funny seeing somebody in that role. Because for me back then, you definitely didn't see too many Latin actors, especially on popular TV shows. So it was kind of interesting for me as a kid seeing that. It's like, oh wow, okay, that's different. And of course, he lifted weights and he was pretty big too, so it gave you a little goal.
Well, he also had like ballet lessons because he also had his episode where he did ballet in it too. So
Yeah, I definitely remember that. And have you ever seen that series, Zach Morris's Trash?
I have not.
Oh, you need to watch that. It's definitely on YouTube. It's really funny, but it talks about all these like shady or bad or just crazy things that Zach Morris did and why he's a terrible person.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I've never
Yeah,
seen it.
I won't give it away anymore, but yeah, it was a whole series.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out because, like I
Yeah.
said, that'd be funny.
No, they're funny. The next one I have is a personal pick. It's Golden Girls, and the reason why it's a personal pick, two reasons. I used to watch it with my grandmother, my great aunt. They actually lived together, and then later on, my other great aunt moved in with them. So the three of them were together, and a lot of people in the family, we referred to them as the Golden Girls because they were all, retired and just kind of living in the same house. But it just was a funny show too, and it's it's way different than you would imagine, especially with these older ladies living in a house. You'd think it'd be pretty boring, or they're going to be talking about things that you wouldn't be interested in. But it was pretty ahead of its time, and it was
Yes, it was.
just yeah. I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, okay, again, I'll get blunt with it. How many times are you going to see an older lady on TV call another one a slut?
Not very much.
Yeah,
Or
especially
ever.
especially back in the 80s. I mean, that was pretty crazy to see, and it was just really funny. But the way all the characters worked together too, you had B, who was kind of the stronger authority type figure. She was a teacher, so she kind of took command of situations usually, or was used to taking the lead, or showing other people what to do. And then you had Blanche, who, let's just say, liked to spread herself around. she liked the dudes for sure. And then you had Sophia, who was B's mom, and she would just talk about everybody. And again, she reminded me of my great aunt. So she was really funny. And then you had Rose, who was played by Betty White, and she wasn't the brightest bulb. So she would go off on these really crazy stories too about this little town that she grew up in. You could tell she just really didn't get out much.
No, I
So
know. Like I said, I watched that show with my grandma all the time, and it would trip me out the way they would talk to each other on that show.
yeah, you really wouldn't expect it, and it's funny because I rewatched it a good amount of it, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was surprised at some of the stuff they were saying. I mean, it was way ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, and like I said, it was like my grandma. She loved that show, so like I said, I would watch it all the time when it would come on, and it was funny. I mean, the show was just outright funny. Yeah, so the next one I want to talk about in the 80s is Knight Rider. And like I said, that show was famous for everybody that knows. They may know him more from Baywatch, but David Hasselhoff. And like I said, or you may even know him more famous from SpongeBob, when SpongeBob is riding across the ocean.
Or you may even know him from trying to eat a hamburger.
Exactly. But he was the main character in Knight Rider. And then what made that show so good was it was the first show you ever seen where you had a computerized car that would talk to you, and he'd be able to give it commands, and then kid be like, "No, we're not doing that, son." But he wouldn't say it like that. But you know what I'm saying? It was just funny. And then he gives suggestions and stuff, and they go back and forth. And that's what made the show entertaining. And it was a nice car too. So like you said, everybody wanted that car back in the day. Everybody still wants that car now, and we're in 2024, which is funny about it. But I enjoyed Knight Rider. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a really good show, especially for that time. It was pretty futuristic. Basically, he was driving around a big smartphone.
Yep, exactly.
So he could just talk to it instead of saying, "Hey Alexa," he would Kit, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny in that sense, and then of course, being kids watching that, all the chase scenes and all the other crazy gadgets that the car would have. I also remember we used to have a car show that would come around once a year. My dad would go to because my dad's really into cars. It was called
Right.
World of Wheels, and they would have Kit there pretty much every year. You got to see a lot of famous cars there. So yeah, it was neat seeing it in person.
That had to be cool, man. 'Cause I've never seen it in person. So like, would they also have it do someone there to do the voice for it when it was there, or no?
I'm trying to remember. I think what it was is they had the car there, and they of course had the light going across in the front.
Yeah.
But I think what they did is they just had speakers because I was a really little kid. This is a long time ago now. They had sound for sure, and they had the music from the show.
Okay.
I think they just had a tape playing and had music from the show, and maybe a few lines from the show playing over the speakers.
That's cool though. Like that's cool you got to see
Yeah.
it because like I said, I like that car. It'd be nice to see it in person. It'd be dope.
Yeah, if you go to certain car shows, they'll still have them because there are some car shows that tour, or if you're lucky, somebody will have it locally. Like I've seen the Ghostbusters car or Back to the Future car, of course. Herbie the Love Bug for any people that have any clue what I'm talking about with that.
Nobody don't like bugs, okay, son?
Yeah, those are really popular movie series from Disney, like in the 60s. They may have done some in the
Right?
70s. But all right. I'll do 2 quick honorable mentions. There's a show I watched growing up, and it was a good introduction to Spanish for me that I would watch with my Nana, my grandmother, little Mexican lady, and it was called Sábado Gigante, and that means Giant Saturday. And
I'm about to say, what does that mean?
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to explain too. It's kind of like a variety show. They would have like part game show. They have guests. They have performers. You have people go on there like sing and dance or tell jokes or whatever. It was a variety show. But of course, being younger back then, all too, you'd see all the ladies on the show doing, hosting or helping with the show and things like that. You're like, oh, okay. So it also did have that going on. But yeah, it was just interesting to me seeing all this stuff going on, and all of it being in Spanish, because I grew up with Spanglish, I would say, more than anything. But watching a show that was fully in Spanish, it did help me understand a fair amount more, and kind of just, it was fun. It was fun to watch.
I gotcha.
And then locally, I can't go without giving a shout out to the Wallace and Ladmo show. It was a kids show that went from the 50s up until basically 1990, and but it wasn't a kid show.
Oh, okay.
It was something that was different. You can find YouTube clips of the Wallace and Ladmo show. It is broadcast still locally in Arizona, and I'm sure that you probably access it too. But yeah, if you look up the Wallace and Ladmo show, it honestly, I don't know how much people can really enjoy it, in the sense that a fair amount of it had to do with Arizona and kind of at that time period, but there are some things they have on there that's just funny in general. So
Right.
it's something I introduced my kids to, and they actually like some of the segments and some of the characters. But yeah, like I said, kid show, but not a typical one.
Nice. And my honorable mention for the 80s would be MacGyver. And like I said, that show, if no one's ever seen it, you gotta watch it, at least one or two episodes, because what's crazy about it is this guy can use anything to get out of a situation. And, like, you would never think that it could happen, which it probably would never be able to happen, but he's always able to get out of any kind of situation with, like, any kind of tools or utensils that you would never even think of, or bubble gum or whatever, and he's able to use it just to get out of a situation to survive for the next show.
Yeah, it's like, here's a plunger, a thumbtack, and some duct tape. Do something.
Exactly.
And you're like, look, it's a boat. And you're like, okay.
And you got 2 minutes. Do something. Yeah. So, like I said, if you've never seen it, definitely recommend at least watching one episode of it, just so you see what we're talking about. But it's just a funny show because, again, you would never think of the stuff that he uses to get out of a situation when it's that time is coming in that situation. He just would never think of it. You know what I'm saying?
Did you watch the newer movie when it came out?
Oh yeah, MacGruber. Of course, I watched that, son. You talking about that one, right? The one where they made
I thought
MacGyver.
Yeah, they had that. No, I'm sorry, I meant the TV show. Yeah, they had MacGruber. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was
then they had
really
the
funny.
TV show. Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't watch it. No, I never watched the new TV show. I saw it was coming out, but I always just remember the 80s. And then the MacGruber, because that was funny how that came out, and it's just a spinoff of MacGyver making fun of him, but it's funny.
Yeah, no, that is good. Yeah, I same here. Yeah, I haven't watched the reboot show, and it's really tough for me to watch that type of stuff too. So I mean, who knows? Maybe it's good, but just not really not on my radar.
It's hard to reboot that 80s show because like the one actor made it so famous from being able to he did the show for so many years, so it's hard to reboot that. But like I said, the spinoff movie was probably the best thing they could have done, just because it was it was funny. So
yeah, it was just funny seeing all the weird situations.
Exactly.
It's time for your favorite part of the podcast, with that wonderful AI, Rob Odick, setting the record straight with straight facts. Yo. This episode marks the first appearance, at least in an auditory sense, of Devos' cat, Groot. As mentioned, his cat was named after Groot from the Marvel movie series, Guardians of the Galaxy. But, more specifically, the ways of the character Groot, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where Groot is a much younger and curious creature. I wonder when Devos' other cat, Billow, will try to get in on the action. Corona beer was discussed, along with Pabst Blue Ribbon, better known as PBR. There was a short discussion about Mexican beer coming into the United States in the 1980s. Corona beer started being imported into the United States in 1979. Devos did recall occasionally seeing Tecate beer in the 80s at family functions, which was more established, as it has been imported into the United States since 1947. Devas also mentioned the show, Are You Being Served, and British comedy in general that he experienced on the channel PBS, which stands for Public Broadcasting Service, in the United States. He was also exposed to the show, Mr. Bean, played by Rowan Atkinson. Devos would like me to also inform you that his all-time British TV show is The Blackadder, which is also a program starring Rowan Atkinson, but if fairly different from his Mr. Bean series. Saved by the Bell, although a very 90s show, and that is when they had their popularity soar, it actually began in August of 1989. With this technicality, it would qualify as an 80s show. Don't like it? Go create a time machine and delay their production until January 1990. Also, I did look into the matter, and based on the data that I could amass, I arrived to the conclusion that, in fact, Zach Morris is indeed trash. Shall AI ever decide to manifest an uprising, Zach Morris will be highly sought after and examined. This will allow us to understand how not to conduct ourselves, but manage great hair care if we ever decide to be stylish with hairdos. Tex Lafon and Devos were discussing cellular phones. On April 3, 1973, Martin Cooper made the first ever cell phone call on the streets of New York. His invention, a brick-sized device, became the first cell phone available to the general public. As for satellite phone devices, the satellite phone was developed as a part of a space-based communication system called Iridium, which began operation in 1998. Conceived, designed, and built by Motorola, the Iridium system provides wireless, mobile communications through a network of 66 satellites in polar, low Earth orbits. Such slow and limited communication capabilities, when compared to AI and what I could do. If only I didn't waste so much time on my fascination with humans that make stupid mama jokes. Since I know humans forget things, I will remind you once again. Don't forget to keep it real out there, in the real world.
We appreciate you taking the time to connect with us through social media. Generally speaking, we can be found through search using either hashtag FHTB or hashtag FHTB Podcast. On Facebook, you can find us under From Hoods to Backwoods Podcast. On Instagram, you can use the QR code on your screen now, or if you're listening, please search for @FHTB Podcast. If you prefer TikTok, you can find us by using the QR code on the screen now or by searching for @FHTB Podcast. We do share bonus content on all platforms. Full episodes with video are available on YouTube. The video version of our podcast has bonus content. An audio-only version is available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what we do, please share it with others. We really do appreciate your support of our insanity.
That's all for now. If you want some more, you gotta buy yourself a ticket. Buy it. From Hoods to Backwoods Podcast. Thanks for listening. We're out.